Good morning everybody, thanks for joining me again. Well, I'm back on Dartmoor and hopefully doing a little bit more woodland photography this morning. I've come to a part of the woodland I know really well, but that's not where I'm going. I'm going to take this old trackway a bit further downstream along the River Dart and see if I can find something new. Just parked up at Tombstone Tor and as you can see the sun's just coming up and hopefully I got some shots of the sunrise and the Tor. Let's follow this trackway and see what we can find, shall we? Well, this is turning out to be quite a nice walk, but I've not really found any really good compositions yet. I think my expectations are a little high. I'm looking for twisted, gnarly oak trees, and if you watched last week's video, I'm on the opposite side of the river, and this side gets a lot more sunlight, and therefore the trees are a lot stronger. However, I thought I'd stop and photograph this group here. Let me show you what I've got in the camera. As I'm walking along the path, and I think I've probably passed the best section of the woodland, I came across this trio of trees here, which with the light, especially on the rocks at the base of this first one, look really nice. So I thought I'd take a shot of this before the sun gets too high and the conditions get too contrasty. So what I'm trying to do is group these three evenly, capture the light on the base here in the middle, need separation between the trees. The one on the right is maybe a little bit close, so I might take another shot moving to the right a bit. So I also have a polarizing filter on the front of the lens here. What that does is cut down the reflections. So in a woodland, if the leaves are wet, you can cut that out, and it has the effect of making the colours pop out, especially the greens. It's dry this morning, but it still is giving me a little bit of a little bit more colour. So I really should take a shot before the conditions get too harsh. So on my F11 I'm focused in on the tree using back button focusing, and just adjusting the shutter speed. I think my ISO can come down a bit. That's the ISO 100. That gives me half a second. I'm going to keep it quite dark to start with, just so I don't blow the highlights out, and then I might slow the shutter speed down a little bit more. Let's try that. Well, as I said, my expectations were quite high for some gnarly oak trees, but still quite pleased with this composition. I think it's quite strong. I like the way the ground slopes away to the right, and the three trees make quite a strong composition. I've kept it quite dark, as I've said, but the highlights on the ground and on the trees really make this photograph. So I tried cropping the image in a little bit, but this really doesn't work. I've lost that structure in the trees, and okay, I've got the highlights in the middle, but there's not much to this photograph. It's funny how YouTube makes you critique your own photographs much more. I'd recommend you try this. When you're putting photographs out to other people, really makes you think about it a little bit more. Anyway, I thought I'd try something a little bit different with that first image. I've given this the Alton effect. If you don't know what that is, look it up on YouTube. As you can see, there's a nice glow to the image, and there's plenty of videos out there just showing you how to create this. So let's move on and see what else I can find. This side of the river has a much more diverse woodland, I think. On this steep hillside here, there's some mountain ash, rowan, some birch trees, oak, lots of squirrels around. Very interesting, but as I said, finding it difficult to find the sort of woodland composition that I'm looking for. And it's early September and we're going through a heat wave. So I think time is short to get some good photographs this morning. I'll just stop because the light's still shining through the trees onto the grass and the pathway. Really looks nice. But is there a photograph there? I think what I'm going to do is just get the camera out handheld and take a shot and see what it looks like. And in the end, this probably ends up being my favourite shot from the day. Really like the leading line of the path, how the rocks at the bottom of the shot really frame that pathway, and your eye is led into the light in the background. Very nice indeed. And I tried giving this the Alton effect as well, but I think this is a little overdone, a little too blurred, and I think I actually prefer the unedited shot. So I finally found something I think I can take a photograph of. Quite like this old dead tree by the side of the path here. Got some really nice shape to it, and with the path maybe I can make a leading line and some interest in the tree. And then if I just move around a little bit, just looking up the hillside here, if I move forward a bit, got this group of trees here, 3 in the foreground leading up the hill, and then quite a prominent one at the back, and I'm wondering whether I can make a square crop of that without getting too much of those highlights in at the top. I'm certainly going to try. So with this one, I don't think I've got the composition quite right yet. The different parts look separated somehow. Got the tree there, path, the other tree on the other side just to balance it and to lead your eye down. But they still look like separate parts of a puzzle rather than the whole thing. I'm going to take a shot and then try just moving around with the camera a bit. So again, I'm keeping the photograph quite dark. You can see the histograms way over to the left. There's a little bit of highlights obviously up in the top there. F11 again. Let's focus in on the tree, shall we? Let's move the focus point over. Focus in on the tree. 0.5 of a second. Well, a really nice tree. The leading light of the path into the light in the background. Works to some extent, but there's just something not quite right about it. As I said, the parts of the puzzle just haven't come together how I imagined it. So yes, I really wasn't happy with that shot. So what I've done is moved over to the right a little bit, move the camera down as well, pushing the tree a little bit further into the frame. This made the path at more of an angle, and it's brought some other trees into play on the other side here. Same settings, focus again on the tree, and let's see what that looks like. Well, that looks much better. I do prefer this over the other shot. The tree a little bit more into the shot. Quite like how the trees on the left have come into play, and that pathway really leads you down into the light in the distance. Okay, next one, let's have a go at this group of trees. I have a feeling this is going to be really difficult with some really bright highlights behind, but let's embrace the highlights and do it, shall we, and see what we can make of this. I do like the shapes of the trees, so I've decided to crop in on just that top group of trees to start with, but you can see it's a really nice group, nice composition. Just need to get the exposure right. So what are we looking at to start with? Still at f11. I'm keeping the histogram a little dark over to the left. ISO 100, still half a second shutter speed. Haven't focused anywhere yet. I've adjusted the polarizer. Let's, I think, focus in on this main tree here and just make sure that's sharp. Let's take the shot and then check the focus. So the focus is okay, but not really sure about this shot at all. The two trees on the left and right, quite prominent, don't really do anything for you, leading you into the back of the shot. Okay, but I'm sure there's a better composition here. So I've put the camera back into landscape. I'm now going to try and capture sort of a wider shot with more of these trees in the frame. And I can see two compositions really. The first composition is really getting this branch on the right hand side in the shot. So just getting this one on the left in and sort of framing it something like that. And then the next shot will be more looking up there to that tree there, and maybe cutting out some of that branch on the right. So I'm just going to make sure I make the most of the polarizer. Doesn't make much difference, but I can see the greens getting a little darker. I think it might be helping me a little bit with the keeping the highlights down. So this time 1/3 of a second, still f11, ISO 100. I'm focused in on the largest tree on the right hand side. Yes, that works better. Really like this. Little haphazard maybe, but the tree on the left has got that nice curve bringing you into the middle, and even with the branch on the right hand side going out to the shot, it still adds something to the whole image, and I think it's quite balanced. And then moving just to the left slightly, cutting out that long branch on the right makes more of a leading line up to the tree at the back. The only thing I'm not quite sure about is the tree on the far left. I could have excluded that, I think, and made maybe a slightly better image. Well, it's starting to get quite bright now, but I will carry on along the path and see what else we can find. So I've just abandoned the path for a second and just going to go down into this bit of woodland here, because I think, although I'm having to go through a bit of a bog, this might be good. So there we go. Now I've adjusted the exposure for you. Hopefully you can see what I mean. This has some potential. Let's go and explore. So yes, it's quite an interesting little piece of woodland here. The mossy boulders mean that the trees are more twisted, and it's in the shade, so covered in moss. But the sunlight is starting to come through now, and I'm not really seeing any good compositions. I may come back here another day, but at the moment it's getting very hot. So I think I'm going to make my way back towards the car and see if I see anything more on the way. So I'm almost back where I started, just at the edge of my favourite woodland. Anyway, it's not been the morning I expected. You will have seen the photographs by now. Hopefully they weren't too bad. But for now, I'm going to call it a day. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And hopefully I'll see you all next week. But for now, cheerio.